This is Slēk Skateboards with their incredible innovation, the Float-Tec trucks. This specific board here is the Bulldog Cruiser, and today I'm going to go through their design, explain what it's used for, and show you how all those extra wheels can benefit you. You can see just from that clip there how smooth it was riding. Those bumps are usually making me fly all over the place. We'll do a lot of testing on that curb right there. I'm always busting my butt on this one. Yeah, pretty much just like that. Ideally, what we're looking for is the wheels to do this right here, and that's normally what they'll do. However, I came at it straight, and no matter what, that's always going to cause problems. With any board, you want to hit curbs at an angle. It'll smooth it out and reduce impact, and that allows this board to crawl over much easier. Let's test that theory. So I'll do a couple test runs and come at it more of an angle. I think this little bump right here will actually help a bit as far as getting up a little bit easier. So keep that in mind for curbs up like this. Definitely look for any sort of advantage you have to getting up there any easier. It looks like that helps it roll up a lot better. Okay, let's test. Not being used to this, I legit got scared right here. Oh well. In this round, it does much better, but it does kind of get snagged. Let's see in slow-mo. It got slightly caught, but you see that back wheel? It didn't stop moving. So it's doing its job for sure. It seems having a little bump like this is ideal because it gives those wheels leverage to actually wiggle. You see that back wheel? It's free spinning. And it seems like ideally having that leverage is what really helps it kind of crawl and roll right over that curb like that. I would honestly love to see the possibilities of Slēk skateboards and these Float-Tec trucks. Wondering if the axles could be any longer, if the Float-Tec wheels themselves could be larger, so that way therefore the standard wheels can also be run larger. I think something like this with some fat chunky wheels, maybe somewhere around the 90mm range, would be insane. Let's do one more curb test. As you can see, this run was much smoother than any of the ones before. It literally just crawled over that. Lifting your weight off the board or decompressing is definitely still a very vital part of being able to clear curbs like this. It seems that allows the Float-Tec wheels to get the leverage that they need to clear. Something I've noticed though, and something that everyone should keep in mind when riding this, if you can't clear this curb with any normal wheel that's 70mm, or it's just too high to clear that front Float-Tec wheel, which is also 70mm, then it's probably going to throw you off. So keep that in mind. It can't just clear any obstacle out there. As long as it's not too tall for those front wheels to climb over, then you should be good to go. Just keep some of these things in mind when riding Slēk skateboards. Don't just go running into any curb, fly off, and then get mad at Slēk for that happening. Use common sense. Now for a little test riding. Now this is obviously a voiceover, so I will say that up front, some of the things I've noticed, it definitely turns a lot better than I expected. I was a little worried that with all the extra wheels, the turn radius would be absolutely horrible. I mean, kick turning can be a little weird, honestly. It kind of slides a little bit, but other than that, actually really carvy. It's a little wet out here, so I kind of slid out here a little bit. That's kind of another thing I've noticed too. The back wheels do tend to slide out, but then again, it's a little wet out here and the wheels are really fresh, so that does tend to happen. But anyway, overall, this ride is super smooth. No wonder they're called Slēk skateboards. All the extra wheels literally just bridge over any little crack, bump, and obstacle, making the ride seamless. This is seriously an incredible innovation for any commuter out there. Oops, wet leaf. But yeah, I think the carvability and turnability could be a bit better. I'm definitely spoiled to Waterborne and the turning radius that I'm able to get with those. I mean, out of the box, these trucks really do have some nice carve, but again, I'm just used to a much better turn radius, and I feel like even when commuting in a situation where there's a tight turn and there's no way to cut through a ditch or anything where these wheels could handle that, the Waterborne adapter could really help with doing a really sharp turn. With or without the Waterborne conversion, I just really love this board. It feels really nice, honestly. For something that was built for a Bulldog, it's very human-friendly. For someone like me with large feet, I always like to run a board that's about 10 inches wide. That's just my personal preference, and this board actually fit all of the specs that I personally liked. They had cruiser boards, mini cruisers, and long boards, all of which I already have boards that are very similar in that shape. So I wanted something completely different, and this definitely fits that bill. Here I'm just kind of doing some little kick turn pumps and just screwing around with the board, just seeing how it feels. Again, the back wheels do tend to slide out just a little bit when doing that, but it's not too major. It's a really solid and stable board. It's a little off camera, but as you can see, it's got a really nice flowy carve, but it could just be better personally. Their other board shapes are probably a bit more agile than this, but again, this one just fit my bill. Originally, this truck was mounted on the furthest mounting holes. Thankfully, they had a second set of mounting holes, and moving those trucks up to there gave the board more of a kicktail feel and allowed me to maneuver better. But having the trucks mounted on the closest mounting holes gives this board a 17-inch wheelbase if I'm not mistaken, so it seems about perfect for a surf skate conversion. I'd definitely love to try some Waterborne adapters on this, so stay tuned for that. I'd like to add some kind of padding or something back here in the tail to actually give it more of a kicktail feeling and give that leverage when pumping. But again, this is the Bulldog Cruiser. It was literally designed for a Bulldog. Wider in the front, thinner in the back, mellow concave, but generally flat. However, I think this still could be a perfect candidate for a surf skate. The deck shape and size is very fitting for my style personally. I mean, honestly, I kind of love how bulky and blocky it is. It's my kind of style. Plus, with how solid these trucks are with the extra wheels, I think Waterborne adapters will help balance it out and improve the maneuverability. Here's a little third-person view of me riding around on the board. No Waterborne adapters or anything on this, just straight out the box. Just so you all can see a little bit better of an angle, kind of see it from an outside perspective, and see just how well this thing can carve. It generates some pretty good speed too. Right here I'm probably going the fastest I was throughout this whole test ride. And then coming back down, this was probably one of the more little carvier maneuvers that I had done. Even though at the end of this I kind of slipped out a little bit. Not that this thing is not capable of doing everything I might want to push it through. I really do feel like I could benefit a lot from using this with Waterborne adapters. But honestly, with how wide the board is and how stable it is on its own and how stable the trucks are on their own as well, that really kind of, it's almost like a balance. I really think that they could work very well together. This board could probably do really well kind of downhill setup. I do not believe that these wheels would be able to handle really heavy drifting and power slides and things like that you see a lot of downhillers use, really like speed checking. So that's one thing I would worry about for using something like this downhill. I really love that they have the extra bolt holes for the trucks themselves for retro decks. That's a huge plus, and that one touches my heart a little bit as a vintage skateboard enthusiast like myself and many others out there. About the Waterborne adapters being installed on these is that it would increase the maneuverability, the turnability, being able to carve and pump for speed, not having to take your foot off the board as much or pushing as much. That would further benefit a long distance pump kind of setup, which is an ideal setup for a commuter, because you really want to kick push as little as possible, but you still want something really nice and carvy that can be able to maneuver and quick turn everywhere you can. I would say, honestly, I think the bushings, I mean, maybe they chose these bushings for a specific reason. I'd really like to talk to them a bit more and see. Maybe they just did it to just prevent wheel bite and prevent any obstruction of these wheels getting in the way. But I really think the bushings could be softer. I think it could be a little bit more of a cruisier ride. Now, granted, this one was designed for a Bulldog, so maybe they went with harder bushings for this setup because of that. I'm not sure. Other than that, there's not really much else you can do as far as being able to turn more, or turn harder, I should say, and being able to carve a bit more. But again, I've been spoiled with Waterborne adapters. This thing's really cool so far. I really want to run some more tests on it. So up front, straight out the box, that is my review of the Slēk Skateboards-Bulldog Cruiser with Float-Tec trucks. It's an incredibly stable ride. It feels super smooth. I mean, it really does make everything feel sleek. The extra wheels bridge out any impact when hitting any curves or gaps, and surprisingly carvy, all things considered. This is really ideal for any commuter. Stay tuned for tons more projects and experiments to come.